Now we're going to take our back neck panels. We are going to lay one of our interfaced neck panels with the right sides together onto a non-interfaced back neck panel, the right sides together. So let's lay our neck panels out here. And let's match them up, right sides together. It can be a little tricky. And you're going to want to clip or pin your pieces together. Next, you're going to stitch the along the curved edge up here. Oh, I've pinned the wrong part. You want to actually pin the curved top up here. Curved upper edge. And the curved upper edge. And then we are going to stitch this curved upper edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to press everything open, the seam allowance open. So let's go do that now. So once again, just this curved upper edge is going to get stitched at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And repeat that for the other side. Now press this seam allowance open. Okay, so I've got these back panels pressed open and stitched. Now we're going to grab our front panel pieces, which we interfaced earlier. They're the ones with the V's on them. And we're going to lay the front panel right side up. So this is the front panel. Let's lay it front side up. All right, so you want the flat ends to be the ones that are out. So in this case, my folded over edges, just because I've pressed them down. And then we want the V part to be attached here. Now I've pinned that. Let's attach the other piece as well. And we're gonna go ahead and stitch that with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we'll come right back and we'll get those button loops added on without a problem. Okay, I'm gonna stitch that 1/2 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're gonna come back, we're gonna do the button loops. We can set these front and back panels aside. What we're gonna do is take this button loop and we're gonna fold it together, right sides together. And we're gonna clip or pin this in place. And then we are going to stitch it along the open side using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to turn it. So once you've pinned it, we're just gonna stitch down the open side, 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're gonna turn it right side out. And we're gonna press it down. There are a bunch of different methods that you can use for turning tiny skinny tubes right side out. You can use the method that you like the best. What I normally do is I just use a loop turner or something very pointy that can just push it through, especially on a tube that's really short like this. It's not as cumbersome as, say, if you were like making a spaghetti strap or something. Spaghetti straps are a real pain in the butt. If I can just be honest, the loop turner is super easy to use. It's very easy to just turn. So we'll just go ahead and do that method. So let's go and stitch this up in a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Not even gonna show you the stitching because it's just so easy, just a straight stitch up and down and a back stitch on either end here. And then we'll come back here and I'll show you how I'm gonna turn it. Okay, let's grab a loop turner. You can really use anything pointy. You don't have to have a specific loop turner like what I have. You can use anything pointy here, or you can even do a different method. But we're just going to wiggle this loop right side out. So I kind of, I always struggle with this, with turning these little tiny tubes. So maybe I'm not the best person to be teaching this part of the class, but the thing you really want to do is get a fold going. What I mean by that is just like loop it over itself. And then you can easily push it through, or you can push it through more easily, I should say, because it's not always easy to push it through, but oh, sorry, got that camera angle there for a second. You can kind of just see how I have this folded over so the right side is coming out. What I like to do is just push the tube up. I'm sure there's a much easier way of doing this, but this is just the way that I prefer. There are a bunch of different ways to turn tubes, but this is such a short one that it's almost like not necessarily worth doing other things. This fabric that I have frays a lot. So you can see I'm kind of like creating confetti. You can just ignore the confetti that I'm creating right now. Starting to get some turn action coming through here. But just ignore my little confetti shreds. Hopefully your fabric isn't so shreddy like mine is. It's a lovely wool dobby fabric, but it does kind of have a bit of a shed factor to it, I should say. When you get to a certain point, you can usually like pull it through. And just kind of force it through the tube. I've got some fraying action happening here, which I think is kind of making it all worse for me on this turning project. I'm sure you can see the frays in the camera in this video. I know for a fact that the pattern instructions also give you a couple of other ways to turn your loops without toiling. If you are seeing this video as a cautionary tale of what I'm doing and you're not wanting to do that, I don't blame you. Try one of the other methods and hope for the best. Yay, we're almost there. Let's just work the rest of this tube out, and then we'll be good to go. Just gonna push on it from the inside here a little bit. Yep, there we go. All right. All right, so just get all these little fraying bits away. We've got our tube. Now we can give this a good press with an iron. And then what we're going to do next is cut the button loop in half. And we're gonna create 2 loop pieces. So if you wanna measure it, it falls in right at about 4 inches. So the halfway point here is 2 inches. So give it a good snip at 2 inches. Now we've got 2 button loops. Okay, and we're back, and it's super hard to tell what I've done here, but here are my little loops. So ultimately, when I get this all done, these little guys are gonna stick out like so. Okay, so we're gonna lay that there. Now what we wanna do is fold the back neck panel with the right sides together. We wanna pin the short straight side, so that's where I have all of this fraying, and we wanna sandwich the button loops. Okay, so let's just fold it over. We're gonna make a little button loop sandwich today. And clip it or pin it in place, whatever you prefer. Now, what we need to do is stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance up this edge, this side. And we want to back stitch. So if you've just basted and you haven't reset your machine, you definitely want to reset it back to the stitch length that is normal for you. Mine's like a 2.5. But you know, whatever it is, you're gonna go ahead and do that. So, and we'll go from there. Okay, and now I've got this stitched on this edge. If you can just grab some of your sewing scissors here, you'll want to clip your corner and clip any extra seam allowance on the edge here that you may have. Like, I really want to get rid of all this fraying action because it's kind of driving me nuts. So I'm just gonna chop that off. So now we have a nice end and we can turn this out. And what I'd recommend doing, you want to press this. You definitely want to press this. But if you have like a chopstick or a knitting needle that you can just press the corner, that often just makes your corner more crisp. So I'm just going to poke a little bit. Okay. And we're going to press that down and just make it look nice. Once we've done that, we are going to grab our iron again, and we're going to press the neck towards the wrong side by a 1/2 inch. We want to create a memory hem. So if you've never created a memory hem before, it's your lucky day. So I'm going to show you what that is. This is the inside, by the way, the non-interface side. So you want to turn that over. So you want to, it's easiest to open things out, but you want to just turn that over set your seam gauge to a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then just measure. And as you measure, you want to press. You want to go down that edge and just press it right along the edge. And that's going to create a memory hem for you. So later on when we need to top stitch or, you know, stitch in linings and things like that, not for this dress in particular, but that's what memory hems do. They just make your hemming process that much easier later on. You're just setting yourself up for success. So let's go and iron, press down our memory hem at a 1/2 inch seam allowance right now. Okay, so I've just finished doing my memory hems, and now if you're doing the sleeveless version, you're definitely going to need to follow the pattern instructions for step number 5, and that's going to be attaching the neck facing that we just created to the back panels, and that's what you want to do. Since we're doing the sleeved option, our path is a little bit different here. And the next thing that we're going to be doing is grabbing our front pieces and attaching them. So like I said, it's a little bit different. You definitely need to pay attention to your step 5 pattern instructions. I'm just gonna get rid of my little phrase of confetti here. But so sleeveless option, please follow the pattern at that point for the next step.